Assalamualaikum and hey guys, we are from University Sultan Zainal Abidin. So this video presentation was done for the subject of International Humanitarian Law. We are from Group 2, Section B. We are going to explain what are the applicability and the limitation of international humanitarian law to address the issue or conflict that occur in Middle East as well as in Africa. So stay tuned and let's begin. Hey guys, my name is Dora Atira binti Muhammad Zubair. My metric number is 046917. So this is the introduction part. International Humanitarian Law, or IHL, also known as the Law of the Armed Conflict. It is the legal framework or set of rules applicable to a situation of armed conflict and occupation. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, there are only two categories of armed conflict, which are the international armed conflict and non-international armed conflict. IHL traditionally regulated relationship between states only. However, over the years, it has evolved to cover a broad range, including recognized obligation for both states and non-states armed groups that are parties to an armed conflict. Even though ICRC is the guardian of IHL, but still there are few challenges in the applicability or limitation of IHL, especially in the conflict occur in Africa and Middle East. So therefore, my other teammates, they're going to explain what are the applicability and what are the limitation of international humanitarian law and address the conflict that happened in Middle East as well as in Africa.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Siti Nur Shahada bint Harun. So today I would like to talk about Article 3 of Geneva Convention. The comment of Article 3 seems to have been built ambiguously in order to achieve a delicate agreement that is desirable to states in favor of stringent application of humanitarian law to non-international armed conflict. In general, Common Article 3 is enforced by setting guidelines in military manuals, providing instructions in humanitarian law to the armed forces, enacting national laws, and keeping persons responsible for breaching Common Article 3 accountable. Article 3 of Geneva Convention shall apply in the event of armed conflict which does not have an international character within the territory of one of the parties to the 1949 Convention. This also refers to cases where there is tension within the state, between the government and the rebel forces, or between the rebel forces themselves. Article 3 establishes a general minimum level of protection for persons not engaging in hostilities, including members of the armed forces, in some circumstances expressly defined in the article. Common Article 3 of the Geneva Convention takes on greater significance than Protocol 2 of 1949 on the grounds that the 1949 Geneva Conventions were ratified by a significant number of states, and also that Article 3 was supposed to be declaratory on this point of customary international law. Nevertheless, this article refers in a specific manner to the situation of non-international armed conflicts as set out in the provision itself. Nonetheless, states can deny the applicability of specific Article 3 to an armed conflict situation. In times of conflict with the application of traditional Article 3, the only conditions in force are the degree of violence. The Common Article 3 refers to civil wars, and at the same time, it does not refer either to civil commission or to armed revolt of low severity. This also does not refer to militant organization guerrilla warfare tactics. The Common Article 3 does not in fact deny the right of the state to take an action against armed rebellion. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, next, beside Common Article 3 of the Geneva Convention, we could use Article 1, Paragraph 1 of the Additional Protocol 2 to the Geneva Convention in order to determine the applicability to address the conflict in Africa and Middle East countries. This is because it introduced a higher threshold of application than Common Article 3, and this protocol applies only to conflict of a certain degree of intensity and does not have exactly the same field of application as Common Article 3, which applies in all situations of non-international armed conflict. And it determines the circumstances in which the IHL applies. So in Article 1, Paragraph 1, it says that the organised armed group must be under responsible command, exercise such control over a part of the national territory as to enable them to carry out sustained and concert military operation and to implement the protocol. So based on this element, if this element are present in the conflict, so the authorities concerned could no longer deny the existence of conflict in the situation. So in this case, IHL is applicable in the armed conflict.
Assalamualaikum and good evening. My name is Natasha binti Makhir and I will talk about the International Humanitarian Law regarding to the armed conflict. International Humanitarian Law only applies to the armed conflict, either international or internal internal conflicts. The law does not apply to the issues like riots, disturbance or isolated sporadic acts of the violence and other similar criteria. Besides, the IHL has limitation and only applies to the armed conflict issues when many multiplying nasty groups, which is make it impossible to identify which group can be considered party to the particular conflict. It is difficult to distinguish the groups as they engage in the same place and the same and towards the same enemies. The engagement of this armed group in multiple different group has caused ICRC trouble to determine whether which group actually caused to the conflict, and therefore it makes it difficult to implement the law as it take long time to separately evaluated among them. That's all.
Assalamualaikum and hello. My name is Noainina binti Muhammad Zul Iskandar. My metric number is 047776. So today, I would like to reveal to all of you regarding the limitation of IHL, of the detention of hostages, and the protection of the civilian. So, the limitation of detention of hostages occur if there are any situation the armed groups required to hold hostages to ensure their safety, and the security of the hostages can only be guaranteed if their needs are fulfilled. This has caused a major problem to ICRC in applying the law. Besides, the limitation of IHL in tackle the issues of armed group, IHL only apply during the conflict. So, it means that the law can be implemented when there is conflict ongoing. The armed groups conflict also is unpredictable. Therefore, it is impossible to implement the law when there are difficulties to distinguish when exactly the conflict is ongoing, and it makes things worse when the legal regime protecting persons living in territory under the control of non-state armed group. Another content that I want to emphasize here is regarding the protection limitation of IHL of protection of civilian. The protection of civilian persons and population in time war has been mentioned under the IHL regarding the rules of general protection stated of civilian of persons by army conflict, whether or not they are protected persons as the meaning of Article 4 of 4th Convention. The protection must be included from four types protection. Firstly, all protection are provided of all persons affected by armed conflict in terms of aid, medical equipment, children and women protection, reuniting a dispersed family and family news, refugees and stateless persons, journalists, fundamental guarantees, activities of the ICRC and other humanitarian organizations. Secondly, protection in terms of treatment of persons generally under the 4th of Convention 2 regarding to the respect for the human in person application to protecting powers and Red Cross, and the prohibition of maltreatment and pillage as well. Thirdly, protection in terms of treatment of foreigners on the territory of a party to the party to ensure the satisfactory condition regard safety, hygiene, and sanitation, and food as well. And lastly, protection in terms of occupation administration regarding the protection of person, property protection, rules of national society, penal legislation, and treatment of civilian internests. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
I would like to give the key example about the limitation of IHL in the case of Syrian civil war. The Syrian civil war today can be said as one of the most complicated to be guided by the international humanitarian law, because the involvement of many state actors and also the non-state actors in that bloody conflict. Overall, the situation in Syria can be described as the internationalized internet armed conflict, which two or more states intervene in support of a state involved in armed conflicts against an organized armed groups or rebellions. So the explosions of the civil war happened between rebels and Syrian government under Bashar al-Assad at the first time. But this non-international armed conflict between the Syrian government and organized armed group slowly changed to internationalized internal armed conflict with the involvement of big state actors such as United States, Iran, Russia, Turkey, France, Britain, and Gulf state that formerly United States formally organized a national coalition as a legitimate representative of Syrian people to fight against the Bashar regime. The situation in Syria getting worse when non-international armed groups join the conflict. This scenario can be calculated as the multinational non-international armed conflict in which multinational armed forces such as Iran, Russia, United States are fighting alongside a host state in its territory. In 2014, ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi announced the formation of Caliphate state that stretching from the Aleppo, Syria to Diyala in Iraq, and named the group as the Islamic State or ISIS. Based on the international humanitarian law, such conflict, internationalized internal armed conflict, is envisioned in Common Article 3 of the Geneva Convention. So the organized armed groups were considered parties to an armed conflict with their own obligation under the international law. The organized armed group is prohibited at any time and any place with respect to violence to life and person, in particular murder of all kinds, mutilation, cruel treatment, and torture. The armed group also prohibited to taking any hostage. So the communication of Syrian conflict is happened between the international state actor and non-international state actors such as ISIS. So that's all.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Nura Amalina binti Muhammad Ismail. My part is on the conclusion. So to conclude that The International Humanitarian Law IHL is a part of the body of international law that governs relations between states and aims to limit the effect of armed conflicts for humanitarian reasons. Moreover, this law also totally focuses on the protections of persons who are not or no longer taking part in hostilities, the sick and wounded, prisoners and civilians, and to define the rights and obligations of the parties to the conflict in the conduct of hostilities. Nevertheless, IHL is not prohibit the use of violence unless they try to control the use of armed force and limit the harm caused. So that's all from us. Thank you.